Hello. Well, in all the disasters over the past few weeks, I have come across some good news items. And one of them is this, although it may not be such a good news item to feminists. I mean, I'm a feminist. I have to keep reminding people of this. I'm an old-time feminist from possibly just about, well, not the earliest days, but fairly early on anyway. I'm not your third wave or fourth wave or whatever they call it, but this is an observation made through the eyes of a fairly long-established feminist. SpaceX Inspiration4 launch. First all-civilian crew blast off on private Earth-circling trip. And, you know, this is good. I don't know how amazing it is technologically, I expect it is, but the idea of space travel going into the wider population is a marvellous idea. It gives me hope, but the hope is tempered with a slight, well, okay, you'll find out in a minute. A SpaceX rocket ship blasted off from Florida on Thursday morning, carrying a billionaire e-commerce executive and 3 less wealthy private citizens. He chose to join him in the first all-civilian crew ever launched into Earth orbit. This is marvellous because, I mean, we know that now it's mostly directed automatically. It's not like the old bomber pilots with the joystick and then the gunner in the back anymore. It's mostly computers. The quartet of amateur astronauts, led by the American founder and chief executive of financial services firm Shift and Payments, Jared Isaacman, lifted off just before sunset local time, around 1 a.m. GMT, from the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, and the spacecraft roared into the darkened skies. This was the 16th of September, so I suppose they're still up there. I do wish them a safe return. So I think this is wonderful and marvellous and everything. And then I saw the photograph of the crew. Now, take a look at these happy people, 2 men and 2 women, all wearing spacesuits. But are they unisex? No, they're not. Just look at the difference between the men's suits and the women's suits. If you notice, the women's suits have a definite nip in at the waist, which emphasizes their female shape, or rather marks out their female shape. Now, you might say, they're speaking as a dressmaker might say, well, that's because they had to dart the costume in because of the female bosom. No, they darted it in because it's a woman's suit and it's made to fit the woman's shape. So they made this dart either to make the women feel a bit better about their suits, or to mark out the women's suits so that they know they're women's suits. It would be easier to identify them. I don't know what the reason is, but it certainly makes the women look more attractive than if they'd simply been wearing the straight up and down suits that mark the men's costumes. I just want you to know that. So this marvellous equal opportunities flight into space is it's marked by a difference in men and women in the costumes. I don't know whether that has practical purposes. If it does, then it means, wow, men and women are different. Or it's because the designer of the costumes wanted to acknowledge the femininity of these women. Perhaps they wanted it themselves to show that they're women there going into space and not just short men, because in the costumes it's sometimes difficult to actually see who's who in those outfits. All right, well, I just thought I'd mention this to you because I think it's rather funny that in the midst of all this gender nonsense that's being perpetrated by a lot of people with too much time on their hands and not enough brain in their heads, these people are, well, going with the flow, so to speak. I wish them all a good journey and a safe return. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.